Google has been the king of search for years, but Google isn't the only search engine out there. So I decided to test 6 of the biggest alternatives: Google, Bing, Brave, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, and Yandex. I ranked them from S tier to C tier. And instead of looking just at how they feel, I gave every search engine the exact same 3 questions. Goldfish tank setup, my Windows computer is running slow, what can I do? And finally, who painted the Mona Lisa? I also looked at things like search quality, AI features, ads, privacy, and perhaps most importantly, where these search engines actually get the results from. Let's begin with Google. And honestly, there's one that is almost unfair. For the first search, Goldfish tank setup, Google gave me exactly what I expected. There were useful websites, guides, different types of result, and information was easy to find. Then I tried the Windows question. My Windows computer is running slow. What can I do? And again, Google did a really good job of understanding what I was actually asking. And this is where Google's AI overview becomes a pretty big advantage. Instead of me having to open 5 different websites just to figure out what to do, Google would summarize the important steps right at the top while still giving me the links to the resources. Of course, AI overviews aren't perfect. Google itself warns they make mistakes, so I wouldn't blindly trust one for something important, but for everyday questions, that's extremely convenient. And finally, the Mona Lisa question. And we get the correct answer, obviously. Google gave me the answers immediately, and there's something interesting happening behind all of this. Google isn't simply searching the live internet every time you type something. Google has its own enormous search index. It crawls constantly, discovers web pages, analyzes them, and stores information about them in the index. Then, when you search, Google's system look through the huge database and rank the results they think are the most relevant. The downside is privacy. Google gives you control over search history and personalization, but depending on your settings, your search activity can be saved to the Google account and used to personalize your experience and recommendation. So Google isn't the privacy champion here, but as an all-rounder search engine, it was clearly the best in my test. Google gets a S tier. Next up is Microsoft Bing. Bing is actually a lot more interesting than I expected. For the Goldfish question, the results were perfectly fine, nothing blew me away, but I could find useful information. When it came to the Windows question, there is where Bing starts losing points for me. At the very top, Bing showed several antivirus related results. And to be clear, these weren't ads. These were actual search results. The problem was they weren't the most useful answers to what I was asking. I had to go down about 3 or 4 results before I started getting the kind of troubleshooting information I was looking for, which is a little strange considering Bing is Microsoft's own search engine, and technically Bing absolutely is a real search engine with its own index. Bing uses a crawler called BingBot to discover web pages and build the Bing index, which is then used to generate and rank results. And Bing also has some pretty impressive AI features thanks to Microsoft's broader AI ecosystem. Privacy-wise, though Bing isn't really competing with DuckDuckGo or Brave, Microsoft says Bing collects information such as search terms, IP addresses, location, cookies, and other information which controls available through your Microsoft account and privacy dashboard. So Bing isn't bad at all. In fact, for some searches, it can be excellent. But in my 3 tests, it wasn't consistent enough to go higher. Bing gets a B tier. Now, this one surprised me. Brave search. I went into this expecting it would be decent, but not necessarily Google level. And honestly, it was pretty good. For the Goldfish setup question, Brave gave me useful results without making me dig around too much. The Windows question was also pretty solid, and Mona Lisa question, no problem. But Brave gets especially interesting when you look at what's happening underneath. Unlike DuckDuckGo and several other search engines, Brave Search has its own independent search index. Brave crawls the web itself and builds its own database from websites rather than simply taking Google's or Bing's result and putting a different logo on them. And privacy is one of Brave's biggest selling points. Brave says it doesn't collect personal information about you, your device, or your searches, and it doesn't build portfolios of users from their searches. It also has its own AI-powered search feature that can summarize information from the web. So you get a decent privacy quality, AI features, independent index, and strong privacy. The reason I didn't put it in the S tier is simple. Google was just a little bit to my actual testing. Google felt more polished, consistently gave me exactly what I wanted, and Brave was close. Brave gets a S tier. Next is DuckDuckGo, and DuckDuckGo is probably the search engine most people associate with privacy, and for a good reason. DuckDuckGo says it doesn't track your searches or build personal search histories. It also offers additional tracking protection through its browser and extensions. But here's the interesting part. DuckDuckGo isn't completely independent when it comes to its traditional web results. It does have its own crawlers and indexes, and it uses multiple sources for things like instant answers. But most of its traditional organic web links and images come from Bing. So when you're using DuckDuckGo, you're not simply using Bing with a different interface. DuckDuckGo adds its own system and privacy layer, but Bing is still a major source of its results, and that becomes noticeable in my test. The Goldfish question was nice, Mona Lisa question was fine, but then the Windows question, DuckDuckGo put two antivirus ads right at the top. And yes, these were ads. That's important because DuckDuckGo actually makes most of its revenue from privacy protecting search ads, many of which are delivered through Microsoft's advertising network. The ads aren't necessarily a privacy failure. DuckDuckGo says they are based on search query rather than a personal profile, but from a user perspective, having two antivirus ads at the top of a troubleshooting search wasn't exactly helpful. So DuckDuckGo gets a lot of points for privacy, but based purely on my search result, it's a B tier. And then we have Yahoo. Yahoo Search is still around, and I honestly wasn't sure what to expect. After using it, I found out for the Goldfish question it was okay. For the Mona Lisa question, it gave me the answer, so technically it works. But when I searched, my Windows computer is running slow. What do I do? And that's where Yahoo really started feeling outdated. Some of the first results were basically pushing cleanup and optimization programs. Compared with Google, Brave, and even Bing, the whole experience just felt like it was from another era of the internet. And there's another important detail here. Yahoo doesn't maintain the same kind of independent web search infrastructure as Google, Bing, or Brave. Yahoo directs website owners to submit their sites through Bing Webmaster Tools for inclusion in Yahoo Search, which reflects Yahoo's reliance on Bing's search infrastructure. So you're not getting a completely separate search ecosystem here. And after using the 6 engines, Yahoo was clearly the weakest experience for me. Yahoo gets a C tier. Finally, we have Yandex. Yandex is particularly interesting because it's not just some tiny alternative search engine. In Russia, it's a major player and is historically even the leading search engine there. Yandex operates its own search index and crawlers rather than simply depending on Google or Bing. So I was actually curious to see how it would perform outside its strongest market. For the Goldfish question, it was okay. The results weren't terrible. The Mona Lisa search was fine, but the Windows question was where it struggled. There weren't as many useful websites as the top, and I noticed a lot of YouTube results. That isn't necessarily bad. Sometimes a video is exactly what you need, but for troubleshooting a computer, I generally wanted detailed written guides. And compared with Google and Brave, Yandex just didn't give me as much useful information immediately. So I'd call Yandex okay, not terrible, not amazing. And for this test, it will get a B tier. So after putting all 6 through the exact same 3 questions, here's my final ranking. S tier is Google, the best overall experience, great results, excellent ecosystem, and probably the strongest AI integration. A tier is Brave, very good result, strong privacy, its own independent index, and some impressive AI features. B tier is Bing, DuckDuckGo, and Yandex. All 3 are usable, but each has a weakness. Bing had some questions, results for Windows query. DuckDuckGo had those antivirus ads right at the top, and Yandex didn't give me enough useful websites for the search. C tier, Yahoo. It worked, but compared with everything else I tested, it felt outdated and less useful. And that's my ranking. Now, I'm curious, would you rank these search engines differently? And more importantly, is Google actually the best search engine, or are we all just used to use it?